But this is just really bad by Jose Fernandez. And when it's found, when your scouting report is found, when you drop a 20-point lead to a player who you didn't put on the scouting report, and she shares it on Instagram saying, should have put me on that scouting report.
That is about as brutal as basketball irony gets. You leave your scouting report behind, blow a massive lead, and then the player you apparently did not bother putting on that report becomes one of the biggest reasons the game flips. But the leaked paper itself is not even the most embarrassing part of this story. The part that really matters is what Washington prepared for, what they completely missed, and why one rookie was able to turn their own scouting mistake into the perfect post-game receipt.
First of all, how do you leave the scouting report up? How do you leave it up? Like it's ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous that you left a scouting report in the locker room first place. But second of all, I want you guys to watch some highlights here. Shout out Cody. Shout out Cody.
Start with the obvious mistake. Somebody has to collect that document. You can have the greatest scouting department in the league, but if your internal notes are sitting around where the opponent can find them after the game, suddenly every sentence becomes public evidence. Every matchup instruction gets judged with the benefit of hindsight. Every player description becomes a screenshot. And if the game went exactly according to plan, maybe everybody laughs for 5 minutes and moves on. That is not what happened here. Because Washington's notes did not leak after some comfortable win where the strategy looked brilliant. They surfaced after a game where the Mystics had control, watched that control disappear, and then had to see one of the players who hurt them publicly point out the most awkward detail. She was not even on the sheet. And that is why this story exploded beyond just, hey, somebody forgot some papers. The document became part comedy, part basketball autopsy.
I don't think she's had the greatest rookie year so far, but I didn't think she had some of this in her, but she was class. She was fantastic. Like this whole game, Cody McMahon was going downhill playing bully ball. They couldn't deal with Cody. They could not deal with her. She had 18 points, and most of it was, as you can see, when they were down 19, 20 points. Most of it was during the comeback. Like, a lot of it was Cody just saying, you know what, I'm going downhill. And I think everybody kind of knew. They kind of knew what Cody was going to do.
This is where Cody McMahon changes the entire tone of the story. 18 points by itself does not automatically mean somebody destroyed a scouting plan. Context matters. But listen to how those points came. The game was getting away from Dallas, and McMahon started attacking downhill. She was using strength, getting into the paint, forcing Washington to absorb contact, and contributing while the deficit was being erased. That matters because scouting reports are supposed to prevent surprises. Nobody is asking a coaching staff to predict the exact box score. Players outperform expectations every night, but the job is to identify the actions and personnel that could hurt you, so your team is not figuring it out from scratch in live possessions. McMahon's style is not mysterious. She has always had a physical, aggressive element to her game. She wants to get moving toward the rim. Once she has momentum, defenders have to make decisions early. So when that type of player starts imposing herself during a comeback, and then everyone discovers she was missing from the document, the optics are terrible. And there is another layer coming, because Washington did spend space preparing for somebody else. The problem is that player had not logged a single minute.
Like, it was a clutch performance by Cody McMahon. She's not on the scouting report. She is not on the scouting report at all. Like, it is a ridiculous one. And then, like, if you're one of these players, like, why would you, everyone knows these are the type of scouting reports. Dugalich, attack her if she guards you. Because Cass Prosper, nothing outside of her role. I mean,
that line from McMahon is perfect because she did not need a 10-paragraph response. Should have put me on that scouting report, says everything. It works because the joke is supported by the game. If she had scored 2 points in garbage time, posting that would feel forced. Instead, she had actual evidence. She helped fuel the comeback, delivered in important possessions, and then got handed the easiest social media setup imaginable. There is also something psychologically satisfying about a player seeing exactly how an opponent evaluated the roster. Athletes normally know team scout tendencies, weaknesses, preferred hands, shooting zones, defensive habits, all of it. But they usually do not get the literal document immediately afterward. Imagine being a rookie, opening that sheet, reading through everybody else's name, and realizing you apparently did not qualify for your own section. Then you look at the scoreboard and remember what just happened. That post basically writes itself.
Not wrong. But like, attack her if she guards you. Little Paige Bugs. Little Paige Bugs is on the scouting report. Cody McMahon had 18 points. Little Paige Bugs has played 0 minutes this season into rebound/defend. No, she's not into rebound/defend because she hasn't played a minute this season.
And now we get to the part that turns a normal omission into something much harder to defend. The report apparently included Little Paige Bugs with notes centered around rebounding and defending, despite the fact that she had played 0 minutes at that point in the season. That does not mean a team should completely ignore deep reserves. Coaches prepare for contingencies. Injuries happen. Rotations change. Somebody who normally sits could suddenly be called. But there is a difference between being thorough and being misprioritized. If you have enough room to include a player who has not entered a game, then the natural question is how a rotation player with a recognizable downhill profile gets left off. You cannot argue there was simply no space. You cannot say the staff only focused on the obvious stars. The sheet proves they went deeper than that. That is what makes the mistake look less like intentional simplification and more like somebody's evaluation process missed something. And this is where people should be fair. A scouting report is not the entire game plan. There were almost certainly video sessions, coaches' notes, walkthrough instructions, verbal reminders, and information that never appeared on this particular page. We cannot look at one leaked document and pretend it represents every single thing Washington discussed internally. But public perception does not work that way. Once the paper leaks, the paper becomes the evidence people have. And unfortunately for Washington, the evidence lined up almost too perfectly with the result.
Are you scouting the end of bench player, but not the player who puts 18 on your head? Georgia Amore, crafty hands, probe and pass, and fake step through around the rim, front of us all night, double off, not will. What? Not something. Oh, so basically double off Georgia Amore. And in fairness, Georgia Amore hit shots. So that didn't work. So they were obviously doubling off Georgia Amore. You have to pick one. You have to pick your poison.
The Georgia Amore section is interesting for a completely different reason because it shows Washington clearly was thinking about trade-offs. When you game plan against a team, you rarely get to erase everything. You decide what you can live with. You might help off one player to pressure another. You might gap somebody who has been less dangerous from one area. You might force a scorer toward a less comfortable shot. That is normal basketball. And sometimes the player you choose to live with punishes you anyway. There is nothing scandalous about that. If Amore hits shots after you deliberately shade attention elsewhere, you live with the math behind the decision. The McMahon problem is different. This was not Washington knowingly choosing, "We will let Cody beat us." At least based on the leaked document, she was not presented as one of the central threats at all. There is a huge difference between choosing your poison and forgetting to label one of the bottles. And once Dallas recognized she had an advantage physically, she did exactly what aggressive players are supposed to do. Keep pressing the weak point until the defense proves it has adjusted.
Always in high alert, on Wnba, high motor, and cut, can score on all 3 levels, wouldn't consider her mid-range to be the greatest. Exceed her efforts, box out, Kikiri defend, deep position, great offensive rebounder, fight early if you're under possession, face box, Shakira Austin, nothing easy to get rolling, battle her in every way for every minute, Lauren Betts, run seals, zone with her, ready to duck in, attack her on drop.
Look at how detailed some of these other notes were. 3-level scoring, body positioning, cutting, boxing out, deep catches, offensive rebounding, early physicality, roll coverage, drop coverage. This was not a one-sentence cheat sheet saying watch the stars. There was legitimate detail, and that makes the absence stand out even more. Scouting is really resource allocation. You have limited practice time, limited attention, limited memory, and a group of players who cannot realistically absorb 50 pages of information before every game. Coaches need to decide which details are actionable. The best reports simplify complexity. They tell you the few things that actually change possessions. But the danger comes when the simplification removes the wrong person. McMahon did not need 20 bullet points. Even one sentence could have mattered. Strong downhill attacker. Meet her early. Do not let her build momentum. Something that puts the defender on alert before the first collision instead of after the third. Maybe Washington verbally covered that. Again, we cannot know everything from the document. But when the game ends with her producing 18 and the team surrendering a huge advantage, it becomes very difficult to separate the leak from the basketball failure.
Yeah, as Cody McMahon should have put me on that scouting report. This is one of, in my opinion, the funniest things I have ever seen. This is one of the funniest things I have ever seen, because not only did you leave the scouting report there.
And this is why I do not think the funniest part is simply that the report was found. The funniest part is that the report accidentally created a storyline the losing team would never voluntarily write. Think about the sequence. Washington builds the lead. Dallas rallies. An overlooked rookie becomes a major part of that rally. The internal scouting notes are discovered. Her name is missing. She sees it. Then she posts the receipt. Every piece reinforces the next one. You could not script the embarrassment more cleanly. But there is also a serious basketball lesson under the jokes. Young players build reputations, possession by possession. Early in a rookie season, opponents may still be operating on college film, preseason expectations, draft evaluations, or very small Wnba samples. The league is learning what translates. McMahon's year may not have been spectacular from the opening night forward, but one advantage has always been obvious: she can bring force. When a defense lets a physical guard or wing repeatedly get downhill, that skill can matter even if the jumper is inconsistent. Scouting reports also evolve quickly. After a performance like this, the next opponent does not need a viral Instagram post to know she exists. They now have professional film of exactly how she can swing momentum. That is the hidden victory here. One big night can change how people prepare for you.
Like, you can leave a scouting report there. It is what it is. But when you leave a scouting report in the gym, and you don't have the second best player from that night on the other team on the scouting report.
Now we can finally get to the real answer behind why this looked so bad. It was not that Washington failed to predict McMahon would score exactly 18. Nobody can do that. It was that the leaked report created the appearance of misplaced attention, and then the game results supplied evidence that made the appearance believable. If Dallas had lost by 20, this is a funny administrative mistake. If McMahon had barely played, it is a funny administrative mistake. If her name was clearly highlighted somewhere else on the page, it is a funny administrative mistake. Combine all three factors in the opposite direction, and now it becomes a coaching story. Because fans naturally ask whether preparation reflected reality. And that question goes directly to Jose Fernandez and his staff. Were they identifying the right threats? Did they adjust quickly enough once McMahon started getting downhill? Did the players execute the adjustment? Was the document incomplete? Or was the evaluation incomplete? Those are different possibilities. And without sitting inside the film room, it would be irresponsible to pretend we know exactly which one happened. But the result guarantees those questions will be asked. A 20-point lead is supposed to provide margin for error. You do not need perfect basketball from that point forward. You need enough discipline to stop the opponent from stacking good possession after good possession. When a comeback happens, it usually is not one catastrophic play. It is a series of smaller failures. A bad closeout, a turnover, a transition breakdown, a missed box out, a defender getting beat at the point of attack, a rotation one step late. Suddenly 10 becomes 6, 6 becomes 3, and everybody on the floor feels the pressure shifting. That is when preparation becomes most valuable, because under pressure players revert to what they trust. If the scouting emphasis did not prepare them for the player driving the comeback, the problem compounds.
It's like, again, it's like scouting for the 2024 finals. Scouting Udon, or 2023 finals, scouting Udonis Haslem and forgetting Gabe Vincent, or forgetting Caleb Martin. It's like doing that. It's like saying, oh yeah, Caleb Martin, I have no idea who this guy is. But you know what? UD. We're going to make sure we know how to lock down UD.
The Caleb Martin comparison actually captures this better than it first sounds. Think about a playoff series where a secondary player starts becoming a real problem. You cannot keep treating him like background noise just because he entered the matchup lower on the scouting hierarchy. The game tells you when the hierarchy has changed. That is the fundamental skill of in-game coaching. Update the plan when the evidence changes. Pre-game scouting gives you probabilities. The actual game gives you facts. Maybe somebody usually shoots poorly from a certain area, but tonight she has made 4 in a row. Maybe somebody rarely attacks left, but the matchup in front of her suddenly makes that lane available. Maybe a rookie has been inconsistent for several weeks, but tonight her physicality is overwhelming your defender. At some point, the paper has to lose the argument to the floor. And that is the part fans rarely get to see. We normally evaluate coaching from substitutions, timeout timing, defensive coverages, and post-game comments. We do not get to hold the actual preparation sheet next to the box score like a before and after photo. This time we did. That is why the story feels so unusually satisfying. It gives the audience something concrete to compare.
And when it's found, when your scouting report is found, when you drop a 20-point lead to a player who you didn't put on the scouting report, and she shares it on Instagram saying, should have put me on that scouting report, that might be the worst way I've ever seen a team lose a game. Like, that might actually be the most embarrassing way I've ever seen a team go out. You blew a 20-point lead, left your scouting report there, and didn't have Cody McMahon on it. Can anyone think of a more embarrassing way to go out in a game?
This is the payoff, because now the embarrassment is complete. Blowing the lead is bad enough. Leaving internal notes behind is bad enough. Getting beaten during the comeback by somebody who appears absent from those notes is bad enough. Having that player discover it and post about it afterward is the part that turns a bad night into a story people remember. And McMahon handled it about as well as she possibly could. She did not need to attack the coaches personally. She did not need some manufactured feud. She made one joke that connected directly to something everybody could verify. Her name was not there, and her production was. That is good trash talk, because the basketball did the talking first. There is also a larger lesson here for teams dealing with young rosters. Players do not remain what they were on draft night. Some translate faster. Some struggle early and figure something out a month later. Some discover one skill that immediately works at the professional level. Coaches have to update those evaluations constantly. The worst scouting report is not one with a wrong prediction. Everybody gets predictions wrong. The worst report is one that becomes stale while the league is changing around it, and rookies change fast. A player can look uncomfortable for 2 weeks, then find the matchup that unlocks confidence. One physical game can create another because now she knows the move works. Defenders start backing up, which creates space for counters. The next thing you know, somebody previously described as an afterthought is part of the opposing team's first page. McMahon may have just accelerated that process, because every coach playing Dallas after this has now seen the clip. They have seen her put her shoulder down. They have seen her contribute during the comeback. They have seen the social post. Nobody wants to be the next team she tags with the same joke.
And for people saying that I said the Mystics weren't going to win 10 games, I don't think people fully understand what the Mystics were doing. Like, game 1 of the season, the Mystics were going 5 on, 5 off. They were subbing their entire starting 5 out and subbing a new 5 in the first quarter. And then when the Sky started losing a couple of games, they started winning, because if the Sky were going to make the playoffs and the Mystics were good, they don't get a lottery pick. The Sky are probably going to get them the 2nd or 3rd pick, odds-wise, so they're pretty okay with that. Like, once the Sky, they started trying once the Sky started losing, because there's no need for them to lose, and they're actually going to make the fucking playoffs. They're going to make it pretty comfortable.
And there is one final wrinkle here, because the loss does not suddenly mean the Mystics are hopeless or that everything about their season is fraudulent. The broader context matters. This team has gone through stretches where rotation decisions in development clearly mattered as much as immediate results. The commentary here even points to full unit substitutions earlier in the season and connects some of the strange early choices to the complicated draft position dynamics involving Chicago. Whether you agree with every interpretation of those choices or not, Washington has eventually shown enough quality to compete for a playoff position. So the lesson from this one game should not be, these people have no idea what they're doing. That is too easy. The sharper conclusion is that good teams can still produce unbelievably bad nights, and sometimes the evidence gets left sitting in the locker room afterward. If Washington responds well, this becomes a hilarious footnote. Somebody makes sure every sheet is collected, coaches update the opponent board, and the players probably hear about McMahon every time Dallas shows up on the schedule. If they do not respond, then the story becomes more than comedy. It becomes an example of a team failing to adjust to information that was right in front of them. And for McMahon, this may be one of those weird early career moments that matters more than the raw number. 18 points will disappear into a season stat page eventually. The scouting report post will not. Fans remember stories. Players build identity through moments that make people say, "Oh, I know exactly who that is. She got one of those moments." Now the next step is proving it was not just a perfect matchup on a chaotic night. Can she punish teams that are specifically waiting for the downhill attack? Can she counter when defenders sit on the drive? Can she force her way onto every scouting report and stay there? Because that would be the real revenge. So you tell me which part is worse, blowing the 20-point lead, leaving the scouting report behind, or getting punished by the player you apparently forgot to put on it. Drop your choice in the comments, and if you want more WNBA breakdowns like this, like the video and subscribe.